Yeah, shall we take a look at democracy? How's democracy doing? Germany's a funny old place. Okay. It's had some struggles, some would say, with democracy over the years, some would argue, and it continues to. But thankfully, we know that it's perfectly fine for them to consider doing the things I'll go over in a moment, purely because of the fact that they have identified that the people they're doing it to is the bad guys. And you know that all of the rules are off the table when you can do bad things to the bad guys, because that is, unironically, that's how politics works.
Are they trying to kill the AFD again?
No, but they might be spying on the financials of the people who are donating to them, because they are now a terrorist organization, because they represent the views of probably up to a third of the population of Germany at this point, because that's just evil. You can't have Germans doing the things they last time we let the Germans vote for something. Do you know what happened?
But they voted CDU?
Hitler.
Oh,
Hitler.
right.
That's the very last time Germans ever voted for anything. So therefore, we can't let them vote for anything ever again. There's a website, and on it is now Calvin Robinson, and he talks to you about things that are to do with religion, and he will answer your calls, and you can get 50% off the gold tier at the moment if you use code Crusade, and that is for people signing up and for people who already have non-gold tier subscriptions on the website. That is for 3 months, so you'll get that 50% off for 3 months. So sign up to the website right now. Do it. Anyway, moving on. So at the moment, AFD, we've covered them quite a lot. They've had a lot of threats from the various parties and the government in Germany because of the fact they're getting so popular that the government says, hold up, if they're in power, if they end up getting in power, we won't be in power anymore. And if they reverse the things that we've done to make it so that we stay in power forever, we might not get into power ever again after that. If they show them that Germany can function as an actual country, then they won't ever vote for us who've ruined the country ever again.
Convincing argument.
It is a really convincing argument. And because in Germany, the AfD has become very popular, and they are getting more and more popular by the day. So there've been recent elections, there've been repeat elections in select districts in Germany, and as part of that in Berlin, and as part of that, the AfD nearly doubled their support that they got from the September 2021 vote, according to this article here.
Even in Berlin? Okay.
Even in Berlin, yes. S-lib capital of Europe were like, should we be less S-libby? Should we give it a go? We'll give it a go. So on this most recent Sunday, because this article is from this February 13th, on Sunday, 550,000 citizens were able to vote, amounting to a fifth of the city's population in 455 districts. And the AfD, as part of that, scored 12.6% of the vote. And in 2021, their overall share was only 7%. In one eastern district, Marsen-Hellersdorf, the AfD received the most votes of any party, amounting to 33.1% of the vote. In 2021, the AfD managed only 18.5% of the vote in this district. The CDU, the Christian Democratic Union, received 21.5% of the vote in the same district, coming in second place. So they are starting to make some real gains here.
That is really impressive.
Yeah.
Like in a city, you are not usually going to get that kind of vote share, and they did.
For a explicitly right-wing
Maybe
party.
it shows there's hope for our London, because their Berlin is our London. I don't know if more than half Berliners have been born overseas, as is the case with London, but
I'm not,
still.
Yeah, I'm not aware of what the demographics are in Berlin, but I think the problem with London is the fact that the demographic shift has been so severe that you have imported in a population that are going to continue voting for somebody like Sadiq Khan.
Mhm.
But, like you say, if it is the case that Berlin has not been shifted in the way it has in London, then that's very impressive. Even if it actually has been shifted, that's even more impressive. Because it might just mean that, for all I know, that 33.1% of the vote might be the only German people still living in the city. That might be
living in a ghetto.
In that one district, they're all just huddled in there and going like, can we vote for the people that don't hate us? Let's do that. And the article goes on to say there are some caveats. Obviously, it's not citywide, it's only select districts. The turnout in the repeat election was much lower. Only 51% of eligible voters headed to the polls, which was a 25-point drop in participation. But it still represents a big step up for the AfD. Of those voters who did turn out, it is somewhat reflective of trends as they continue, because the AfD is gaining more momentum, it's getting more popular. And in an analysis piece that they quote in here, they say, it was called a final warning for the traffic light. And the traffic light seems to be a name that they've given for the political coalition that's in
Red,
is
green,
in power at the moment. Yeah, they've said several signals can be derived for the 4 major elections this year, especially for the federal government. If the repeat election in Berlin was the dress rehearsal for the European elections and the state elections in Saxony, Thuringia, and Brandenburg, then it failed for the traffic lights. The SPD and especially the FDP have to fear the coming elections. Both parties are among the big losers in the nationwide polls compared to the federal election. Chancellor Olaf Scholz's SPD is back in the grey middle field. It looks even more drastic for the FDP. If the 455 electoral districts are broken down, the Liberals would clearly fail the 5% hurdle. They know this from many past elections, but the prospects for the Liberals, who are traditionally weaker in the East, are not bright. So according to this article that they're quoting in here, it sounds like it's looking bad for the people who've ruined the country.
Ausländer raus.
Yep. There you go. And why might people be voting for the party that says, let's not destroy the country with massive amounts of immigration and demographic change? Well, it's because of the fact that there has been massive amounts of immigration and demographic change. For instance, for some reason, Germany holds over almost 1.5 million Turkish people in there.
They're guest workers. They will go back.
Yes, and that's of the people who are I think they're resident foreign nationals, so they don't have German citizenship. Whereas if we look up here, 92% of residents in Germany had German citizenship, with only 80% of that population being Germans, because they have no immigrant background. Of the 20% of the people with immigrant background, and this is as of 2012 that these figures are from, so it's been 12 years since then, so it'll be far worse now. 3 million had Turkish origins, 1.5 million Polish, 1.2 million Russian, and then Italian. So you can see that, yeah, they've got some EU thing here. But even in 2012, for some reason, they had 3 million Turkish German nationals there.
Do you know about the Gastarbeiter program?
No, I don't.
It's what I was referencing. It's the dumbest thing the Germans ever did. They decided, you know what? We don't have enough people working here, so we'll get some guest workers to turn up. And they went to Italy and Greece first, and they didn't get enough. So then they went to Turkey, and were like, yeah, no, all of your men can come here, and they'll work, and then they'll go back, right?
Genius.
And they didn't. They just stayed.
What a surprise.
So,
are you stupid?
Again, that's the question of, my hometown or at least I wasn't born in Bologna in Italy, I was born in Rome, but there was once this scandal where our archbishop, his name was Cardinal Biffi, and he said, you are making a case that we need some workers, we need some migrants. Why not pick them from countries which have more cultural affinity with us, like from South America? Argentinians, they are descent from us, they are Catholics, and everybody was like, oh my God, how can you say that?
How could you say something so true?
the Gastarbeiter program that you mentioned, they went to Portugal. They maybe didn't get enough, but after a couple of generations, the Italians and the Portuguese and the Greeks that they got, some of them actually went back to their home countries because Italy and Portugal and Greece eventually, especially Italy, did much better, right? So we were talking about, this was relatively shortly after the Second World War, where there was such a huge shortage of workers for the German industries. But those who decided to remain, being Italian or Greek or Portuguese, they perfectly integrated into the society. So you can see them, maybe they look a bit different or the surnames are still different.
But it's a small jump.
Exactly. Whereas the Turkish population, they arrived, they stayed, they were not guests. Why would you return to Turkey where the economy is not doing well, among other things? And then, of course, they marry from their own country. Then they bring their, immediate and not so immediate family members. And now this is a huge problem. Forget about criminality and all that. They are a fifth column of Erdogan. When the Turkish elections are happening in Turkey, you have rallies between these parties, Erdogan, anti-Erdogan people, sectarian violence or ethnic violence between the Kurds, who are Turkish citizens but are Kurdish, and Turks who are Turkish citizens but ethnically Turkish, similar to what we have maybe between Pakistanis and Indians in Leicester and elsewhere, but to a greater scale. So it's almost as if taking people who are difficult to assimilate is not a good choice,
And I covered this in a recent premium podcast I did with Josh, actually, exactly what you're talking about, with the fact that the Turkish diaspora is eligible still to vote in Turkish elections, where they will all vote as an ethnic bloc in favor mostly of Erdogan. So they'll vote for their own right wing, but when they're in Germany, and they're voting in German elections if they are eligible to vote, they form an ethnic bloc that will vote overwhelmingly left wing, because no matter what their own personal cultural values are, the left-wing parties are the ones that are appealing to their ethnic interests, which is maintaining a more open border, meaning that they can bring in people when they want, they can go when they want, they can do whatever they want. They're the parties offering the most benefits to them, which is, as an ethnic bloc, what they're going to go.
And they influence the German foreign policy. Erdogan tells them which parties to vote. And of course, they would vote for the left and anyway. And the good thing is, I mean, the interesting thing is how we can compare this, for example, to us. How you see some Labour Party is trapped in this anti-Semitism perennial row because they have significant number of Muslims in their constituencies, Labour MPs. So they have to appease to them. Maybe they don't want to ceasefire, but they have to say they want to ceasefire. So once you are taken hostage by these pockets of culturally different people, voters, constituents with different values, then it's the end of it, because then you have to appease them, you have to pander to them. You have the same situation Biden in Michigan, because Michigan is going to be a key state and they have a sizable Arab Muslim population in there, and of course he has to every now and then they do exercise they do influence U.S. foreign policy.
In America, it's similar with the enormous Mexican diaspora that they have in there, especially among the southern states of America, because they go in, they become eligible to work. And then there's a significant portion of parts of the border patrol across the southern states that are now manned by people who only just got across the border a few years ago. Who knows how long? Who knows how legal it is that they're even working there? And then it's in their best interests to support their own ethnic groups and help people. There have been a number of cases where border patrol agents who have been Mexican or of the Southern American ethnicity and have helped people to get over across the border.
It's almost as if blood is thicker than the ink on your passport.
They work in their own in-group preference.
Because I'm looking at this, for example, back at this chart. And it's just like, take these two, for example, the swamp Germans and the mountain Germans. I think they might have an easier time integrating into Germany than these dudes.
Austrians and Germans have never got along. I don't know what you're on about there, Callum. But they've got nothing in common.
But intermarrying and jumping just seems a bit easier than Abdul Mukbaka from, Afghanistan. The level of difference between those two states is just unbelievable.
Hi folks, sorry to interrupt the video, but I wanted to let you know that we've introduced a feature on the website that allows you to purchase individual videos. So if you go over to lotus.com and see a piece of premium content that you really want to watch, you can pay for it, and it is yours forever.
Listen, what does your average German and Arnold Schwarzenegger have in common, okay?
Nothing.
Nothing at all. Absolutely.
But
nothing.
Arnold Schwarzenegger has been liberalized in the negative sense of the term.
Yeah, right.
He's a lost cause. But I think there's my wife is Austrian, by the way, and
sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'm joking.
I'm recreating the Axis powers. I just need to adopt the Japanese.
Bringing it back together.
Yeah.
The boys are back.
But Austrians and Germans might have a lot of banter between them, but ultimately, all over Europe, we are similar cultures. And this was the point Nigel Farage was making. 12 countries when EU was 12 countries. More or less, apart from common values and common history and worldview, more or less similar levels of prosperity and economic performance, that would have worked. But then when you decide to go east, no matter what reactions you might get from Putin, and when you decide to bring in Turkey, and when you decide to have open borders, so it doesn't even matter whether Turkey is a member or not, this is what you get.
Also, with what you're saying about there with the 12 states, obviously it's not just the culture as well. It's the fact that obviously each of them form distinct groups, but between those groups, in certain parts of the population, there's a hefty amount of admixture that's gone on throughout Europe as well, where populations are all made up of different of quite similar ancestries. So you can
swamp Germans, mountain Germans.
Swamp Germans and mountain Germans, exactly. So you can say that ancestry binds us together as well in a way that you don't have that same ancestry when it comes to somebody coming from
Iraq,
from Turkey or Iraq or Nigeria.
And then you have to hand leaflets to them. Please don't rape our women, or please don't touch people when you go to the swimming pool. When you have to give out those leaflets saying
You've already
no
lost.
means no.
It's not great.
It was not a good choice.
But Anyways, just because we've been, I think we've hammered this point home. So that's just the legal immigration, because also, of course, the big problem in Europe as well has been the refugee crisis, the illegal immigration coming into countries. And Germany has had, like so many other places in Europe, record levels of illegal immigration over the past few years that are coming to rival the immigration that we got in 2015 and 2016. The illegal immigration, I should say, the foreign agents sneaking into countries. Like police data from last year showed that between January and September, 92,119 individuals illegally entered Germany. And what you've always got to think of with that is those are the ones that we're aware of and that were caught, or at least noted down,
Right.
that we are aware of. So there will probably be far more. That's the ones that don't just come through into Germany and pass through into the rest of Greater Europe, and then come to England, probably. Olaf Schultz said that, of all people, the Chancellor, who was saying about how evil it is that the AfD even exists, was saying, okay, maybe we need to deport these people. Maybe we need to deport all of these people because they're here illegally. But we need to make sure, because he says at the same time, he underscored the need for Germany to take in individuals truly entitled to asylum, which is completely arbitrary at this point. When you say, oh, it's truly truly entitled, it matters. All that matters there is how convincing a sob story they're selling to you. Because you get people coming into the country from parts of West or East Africa saying, I'm from this country that's currently in a civil war. But how do you know? They've thrown away their passport. They've got
rid of lying.
Yeah, they've got rid of all evidence to the contrary. So they might just be saying that, and they might not even be from somewhere that's a war-torn country. And once again, my question is always, why is it Europe's responsibility to
Not
take
China's.
these people in? Why is it not China's? Why is it not, say, for instance, with Israel Gaza at the moment? Why are we not putting more pressure on Jordan or Egypt to take all of these people in when the plans are being drawn up to send them all over here instead? Why does Europe have to be the dustbin of the universe?
Well, the point is that they want these people to come over here. And when you talk about the I really like this when they say, no, the great replacement theory is a conspiracy theory because none of our overlords have openly said that they want to replace. I mean, they don't. First of all, some of them do say that in German parliaments,
Yeah.
They
elsewhere.
kept saying it on TV.
They say we are becoming more and more diverse or multicultural, and that is good. They say by 2050 Germany will not be a majority white country, and that is good. I mean, the videos are there, but why would they have to? They are bringing millions of people whom we know for fact that outbreed us. They outbreed us when they are in their own countries, and they outbreed us when they are here. So in Italy, we say mathematics is not an opinion, right? It is bound to happen. It's like, it reminds me of when Turkey says, the Turkish government says, the genocide of Armenians, it wasn't a genocide, it wasn't intentional. We just asked 1 million or 2 million Armenians to walk barefoot without food and water across the desert for 10,000 miles, and 1 million of them died in the process. But it wasn't intentional, it was just a byproduct of our decision. So this is great replacement theory, which is more than theory, in my opinion. They want these people to come here because they have realized that people with any degree of insanity will not vote for the left.
And they want
Anymore.
to demonize. I mean, there's so much evidence you can get. There's footage of Joe Biden before his brain started dribbling out of his nostrils and his ears, where he was talking in the Senate or some other federal government function, where he said that by 2050, he was saying that people of European descent, Americans of European descent, would be an absolute minority within the country. And then he, of course, goes on to finish it off by saying,
It's not a bad thing.
and that's our strength. That's what makes us so strong. Well, evidence, all quantifiable evidence to point to the well-being of a country, how safe a country is, how wealthy a country is, points to the contrary of that.
Yeah.
And even if it did turn out that people were contributing a 0.01% GDP boost per person coming in, is that worth being replaced as a culture, as an ethnic group? No, of course it
And
isn't.
everything is worth preserving, apparently, other than white ancestry Europeans.
Yeah, European people.
In where I live in London, they have recently reintroduced beavers into the ponds and the wildlife of my London borough. After hundreds of years, they brought beavers from some other part of England and reintroduced them. Okay, fine. But if beavers are worth preserving, aren't Western Europeans worth preserving in their ancestral
How many
homelands?
beavers am I worth?
I mean, do you have the natural instincts for dam building?
I don't.
No, then sorry. Sorry, that's the new metric that we're going by. Anyway, moving on again. So that's why people are voting for the AFD. So then the Guardian puts out articles doing, which is literally a panel, a round table of various figures saying, how do we stealth ban them? And then one or two, unsurprisingly, Fatma Aydemir, beautiful German name, saying that, yeah, we should just ban them. We should just
don't even stealthily do it. Just ban them.
Yeah, just ban them. I know it's going to be difficult. I know it's going to be a bit of trouble. There might be some constitutional questions about whether we should do this or not, whether we're allowed to do it, but we should just do it.
And these are the people who call Trump a dictator, right?
Yeah, but you've got to realize the AFD, some of them were caught meeting up with neo-Nazis. How do you know that they're neo-Nazis? Well, because the media like The Guardian branded these people who say maybe Germany should be a place where German people can live peacefully. That means they're neo-Nazis because The Guardian says they're neo-Nazis. So therefore we can ban them, because if they're neo-Nazis, if being a Nazi in Germany is illegal, has been banned since the end of the Second World War. So if we just call them Nazis, it means that they're illegal altogether.
Of course, they have zero self-awareness. They have tried to ban AFD at every juncture. And the good news for Germany, because if you see, when you think about Germany, remember, if so much white guilt and shame and fear of being white and the empire and the British identity has been injected into the youth in this country, imagine how much worse that can be in Germany because of the history of the Second World War. So it takes so much more courage, and it's much more difficult for Germans to have their identitarian movement. And this AFD has been doing very well, considering that it's only a 10-year-old party. But the good thing for the Germans here is the proportional election system. That means the votes sum up ultimately at state level, but also at national level. That's when you have a workable, persistent, and solid political party like AFD in Germany, the results ultimately show. Whereas in the UK, we have first past the post. So we have our little Reclaim Party and Reform Party and UKIP Party and future parties, but we have this election system that basically deprives people of their say, because ultimately your vote is going to be lost.
Absolutely. I just want to point out one of my favorite parts of this article is one of these people. I can't find it exactly, but I've got it in my notes here, talking about the Constitution, talking about what the point of the Constitution is. Says the core of the Constitution is the inviolability of human dignity. It is the very principle that is severely attacked by the racist and discriminatory policies of the AFD. So the inviolability of human dignity here, I think, can translate to the point of the Constitution is to replace Germans. If it does not allow for the replacing of Germans, it is not constitutional. That is the gist that I'm generating.
I am a legal scholar.
Exactly. And so what else are they doing other than just getting a load of political pundits to write for The Guardian and say, well, we could just ban them. Well, the German government themselves have obviously been toying with this idea, but it looks bad. It looks bad if you say that you're a bastion of democracy, someone that a place that cares about the voice of the people, the will of the people. That's the whole point of this supposed democracy thing in the first place. It looks bad for them to just say you can't vote for these people anymore because we, the people in power, say that you can't. So they go for non-political routes of doing this. They can't be bothered to go through the constitutional rigmarole of spending potentially years and years and years in court trying to pass this through and revising it over and over again. So once again, if we just call them extremists, brand them as terrorists, then we might be able to do it through legal routes instead. So what's happening here? The senior German intelligence officials and the country's interior minister are plotting travel restrictions and even a potential purge of the civil service to smash right-wing extremist networks as Berlin's traffic light coalition struggles to fight a rising tide of nationalism and public discontent, according to the European Conservative. The so-called act of defensive democracy envisions a beefing up of the Office for the Protection of the Constituents Authority and was announced Tuesday by the Special Democrat Minister Nancy Faeser, who has written for far-left Antifa magazines in the past, alongside...
yes, an expert on extremism.
Yes, exactly.
She is one.
She is one, so,
You got to give her that.
I mean, you've got to be one to know one, I suppose. Alongside BFV chief Thomas Haldewang and Holger Munch, president of the Federal Criminal Policy. I'm not.
These are made up names.
These are
This are not real names.
Holger Munch, Munch, nom nom nom. We should treat right-wing extremism networks like organized crime groups, according to Faeser. Germany has already defined the Alternative for Deutschland, AfD party, as falling into the category of right-wing extremism. So because we say that you're neo-Nazis and right-wing extremists, therefore you are, our intelligence agencies have you on a list as right-wing extremists, so you are. And its youth wing, Young Alternative, was deemed extreme right-wing by a federal German court only last week. This definition already gives the BFV the legal right to spy on the party and its members. To protect Germans from internal and external actors who manipulate the free formation of opinions among people in our country, the plan envisions...
We will ban free-formed opinions in our country.
Exactly that. The plan envisions monitoring of internet sites and the authority to order the taking down of offensive material. That's right. A key part of Faeser's plan is surveillance and disruption of finances of right-wing extremists, or as the Interior Minister put it, we want to destroy right-wing extremist networks, deprive them of their income, and take away their weapons. So this neo-Nazi meeting that they were supposedly involved in also featured some relatively high-profile German entrepreneurs and businessmen. So I would assume this would mean shutting down their bank accounts or confiscating their finances until they agree that they won't be associated with the AfD anymore, or just putting them in prison because, oh, you're funding right-wing extremism, therefore we can imprison you.
So it's a pattern that we are seeing all over the West, right? In maybe different contexts, but the pattern is the same. We had the truckers in Canada having their bank accounts blocked. We had Nigel Farage's debanking story here, and we have this. Of course, Germans have maybe more experience at this. They had, all of us remember Angela Merkel's meetings with Mark Zuckerberg, right? Because the lack of self-awareness in these people, because it's never us who are traitors and ruining the country, and therefore people go to vote for Brexit or Trump or AfD. It's always, well, maybe we didn't get our message well enough, or maybe it's the Russian boss, or maybe it's Facebook. It's misinformation and disinformation. So they go after Facebook and platforms and try to debank them. But ultimately, if you ban AfD, and I'm sure they will do their best, or to do all these other sly tactics.
If they're being branded a right-wing extremist group, being observed by the intelligence agencies, and you as an individual, not even necessarily a financial actor, not a businessman, entrepreneur, you as just Mr. Krautsman, who doesn't want Germany to be to be completely turned on its head and want to support a party that will try to fix the problem.
Don't want to become a minority in your own.
You don't
country.
want to become a minority in your own country. You throw a few marks over to them or a few euros, and then all of a sudden you're getting your bank account confiscated from you because you're supporting right-wing extremism. Does Mr. Krautsman amuse you?
It does. Mr. Holdewang and Krautsman are good names.
Yes, they are. So you are right. This is a massive trend that we're seeing, and it's because of the fact that the financial networks are so inculcated within the ruling class. And I don't think necessarily that they would even acknowledge if you called it hypocrisy, because the rule that they're applying is it's democratic when we do it. When we ban the opposition, it's because we are the embodiments of democracy. You are the embodiments of not democracy. You're not part of our ruling class. So if we financially punish you, if we imprison you, that's because we're protecting democracy. That's the way.
In Italy, we say the law is applied to the enemies and interpreted for the friends.
Yes.
The law is applied to the enemies, but interpreted for the friends. So all it takes is to label you right-wing, or you know, the security acts, or by the powers given
enabling act,
you know. And just again, in the US, they're using this 2-century-old amendment to call Trump's behavior insurrection. Like a bunch of people walked into the Congress, none of them armed, nothing happened. One of them got killed, the only one who got killed, but that was an insurrection. So that's that. That's the interpretation, which is convenient to them. Here in the UK, you know, we've heard fears of, you know, national security acts being used, or are being actually effectively used, against people who want to pray outside an abortion clinic, or protest outside grooming gang trials. And again, in Germany, all it takes is that for you to say, hey, maybe in Germany, the official language should stay German and we don't want to be a minority in our ancestral fatherland. Okay, how about that? And then suddenly you're worthy of being debanked or even worse. So they're interpreting the law in the manner that is convenient to them. But the question is, if 30% of the population have the intention of voting for AFD, where would they go?
I don't.
They wouldn't go anywhere.
I think it's more close to 20%, but that's still that's still a fifth of the population.
Yeah, and of course, there might be a lot of shy AFD voters. And of course, this might galvanize them and catalyze their support. Because if you consider the amount of propaganda and the amount of brainwashing and indoctrination of the youth, and still, after decades of this, and after giving easy passports to all these migrants who are obviously almost always default leftist voters. And still 1 in 5 is considering to vote for these pariahs, these neo-Nazis, these alt-right and far-right people. It is still quite a massive achievement. And of course, thank God for the proportional system, which means actually those votes can potentially translate into something which we, as I said, in the UK don't have.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the Brokenomics series, this episode on the gig economy. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Twitter at lotuseaters_com on Twitter. Thank you and goodbye.